You're listening to the Custom Built Podcast. In today's episode, we're discussing what's happening during that pre-construction phase and why is your contractor so dang quiet during it. So stay tuned. I've talked about the pre-construction planning part for you as a homeowner, why it's so important, what it means for your job, but I want to go a little deeper into why or what is happening behind the scenes from your builder side. And why does it seem like we might just be sitting around twiddling our thumbs in this process? Because could be a couple of months of quiet work that you don't get to see because there's a lot happening behind the scenes in order to make that construction phase go seamlessly. So every job has to start at the very beginning, and that is the first walkthrough. And that's where us as a builder and you as a homeowner are coming together and we're meeting for the first time typically. And we're talking about what it is that you want, what your dreams are, what you want your house to look like. And that beginning meeting is really just to get to know each other and understand why we do what we do as a home builder, what you're looking for as a homeowner, and then just get some basic information. It's kind of just that discovery call, that discovery moment that we're trying to make sure that we're the right fit for you and you're the right fit for us. And let's say all is good. We really are excited to work together and now we want to get moving. The next stage typically should be a pre-construction sign, a contract. And we require that because there's so much that goes into this phase alone. Now, once we get to construction, it's just easy sailing typically because we're doing all of the heavy lifting up front. And so, for example, I have just started a job that I have been working on for the last 3 months. 3 months of planning and going back and forth with the architect, with the designers and trades, and getting everybody settled and understanding what this project is going to look like. And in that time frame, I'm not just talking to my trades and who I'm going to build or what the construction team is going to look like, but I'm also solidifying numbers. I'm getting more validated numbers. I'm looking at materials. I'm understanding elevations that we need to know when we're building. I'm asking questions early on before we even get to construction, because once we start construction, we should just know what's happening. These are things that we want to find out later on. We don't want to be looking at a plan and looking at an elevation and be like, this isn't right. Could that happen? Sure. But the percentage of that happening dwindles drastically when we take these steps up front. So for this project alone, we started so broad and so loose. I had a schedule created months ago, but as time got closer, as we understood what we needed, and engineering takes a little time, the architect takes a little time to get these plans in motion. Now, this wasn't even a job that I came on to late. So we already had preliminary architectural plans. There was already design in the process. So for me to take from, the last 3 months to now was just really gathering more information. That didn't even factor in the design ahead of time. And I think that's really hard for homeowners to understand, because when you are reaching out to, in my experience, when a homeowner is reaching out to the builder, they think they're going to get started right away. Things are going to happen. And we would love to do that. But we also want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and making sure that everything is in place for us to do exactly what you asked for and deliver what you're looking for. That might look like you come to us with some inspiration and you have this grand idea of what it's going to look like. And so why do we need to take all this extra time to do it? Well, I'm going to tell you. Well, guess what? I'm going to tell you why. Because we've had these kinds of conversations multiple times with multiple homeowners. I've had homeowners come to our meetings with a full scope of work, everything that they want, inspiration, their selections. These are all wonderful, great things to have up front. And I still need to do my part. And that means you came to me with inspiration. I need to make sure I'm understanding what it is that you want exactly. And then I need to source these items if you don't already have those things sourced out. So for example, we're working on a bathroom renovation and the homeowner did not want any grout lines in their shower. They want these large slab pieces, and their budget wasn't necessarily slab friendly for what they're looking for. And so we had to come up with some other options when we discussed it with our design team. And this also meant that I had to figure out how I'm going to price the labor on this. So tile work, I've said it probably a bunch of times now, is one of my most expensive labor charges that I have. And for good reason. I mean, it's a specialty that, especially when we're working with specific tiles and specific looks, like you need to have a craft for that. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to be able to work with many different materials as far as the stone or the tile, right? And so for this homeowner specifically, when we're looking at large slab tiles, now we're talking about, are these tiles or are these stone slabs? If they're stone slabs, now they're getting fabricated. And if they're getting fabricated, then we need to make sure we get all these measurements accurate. If we're doing large tile, then that's a little different. Our tile installers should be able to do that. They should be able to cut. But now we're talking about cutting out for niches and any kind of extra lighting that you might want in that shower. So there's a lot of details that come in. And when we're going back and forth and we're trying to decide if we're going to do the slabs or the tile, I can't give you a validated number with that because I don't really know. Going with stone and fabrication can cost, it's a crazy amount of money. I mean, like it can be anywhere from, $1,000 to like 10,000 and more, right? Like, so there's just so much to factor in. And when a homeowner wants a specific price, but we don't have all the details, then we are unable to give you an actual number. Now, if you wanted to go with tile and you have a specific selection and I have an idea of how many tiles we need and we know how the layout's going to look, I can give you a lot better number for that. In fact, I can give you almost 100% guarantee. And when I give you a hard number, that's typically it. But if you're going to change anything during the project, then that number might change. Those are called change orders, right? So when we're talking about that pre-construction, this is those little details. Like we can't give you an actual number until we understand the details. And sometimes we have projects that come to us that are very straightforward and we know what we need to do, but we still need to coordinate between architects and engineers. And then we also need to coordinate with the jurisdictions and what they need. And so we have one project that we've been planning for a little bit, which is a detached garage. And we had to do a few drawings for that and make sure, that homeowner came with everything that they wanted. And it was great because what they wanted and what we created, we were all on the same page. However, this is now taking a few more months because the architect needs time to build it and then build the plans. And then we need to send it to this specific jurisdiction for zoning. And then we need to get the building permit. And in the meantime, we also need to get the engineer because we're building a whole new building. We need to make sure we're building this safely. And so these are things that take a lot of time because we are bringing in other people who are also helping other people, other builders create plans and help other homeowners. So this is a long process that can be really frustrating for a homeowner because it doesn't seem like anything is happening on our end. It's crickets for the most part, but we are constantly going. And when we are waiting on the architect and we're waiting on the engineer to give us plans, we're still working. We're still coordinating with trades. Back to that job that I just started today that I've been planning for the last 3 months, I've been having meetings with trades. I've been doing walkthroughs, for months and multiple times. We're having the architect come in. We're having the engineer come in. I'm bringing in my trade who's doing majority of the framing and the foundation work. And we're all sitting down and making sure we understand what the strategy is to build this addition. And I'm bringing in my trades to my MEP trades to talk together because we had to do some coordinating and movements that require them to kind of work together. And so all of this is happening while I'm still waiting on engineer, while I'm still waiting for permits to go. And also, I'm still tightening up the budget and the schedule and making sure this all makes sense. And I'm having these meetings with these trades and with the construction team that we're going to be building this addition for in order to make sure that when we start to, like we did today, there aren't any questions. It's pretty seamless. And even today we had a solid plan, but it shifted a little bit because once we were on site, we had some logistics that were like, this makes sense where we can maybe move this around a little bit. And that wasn't a big deal because it's still within our schedule. It's still within the time frame and everything's working out great. And those things are going to happen. Things will shift because you can only do so much of that type of pre-planning until you're on the site and you're actually doing. But that's okay. Like I said, we were planning for different things. And so we were able to be flexible because we've had these open communication, this open planning, and we have the schedule out and available for everyone to see what's going on. And that's the difference between having that pre-construction planning versus not. If I didn't have this time to make sure that this job will be seamless throughout, then we would have started day one and been like, oh no, what are we supposed to do? Now this homeowner is going to be without heat and it's dropping into very cold weather here in Charleston. So we have these plans, but if I didn't have it, then, it just would have been a disaster from the rip. And that doesn't sit well with me. And I don't think a homeowner would appreciate that either. And so I want to keep reiterating why it's so important for that pre-construction phase and what we're doing on that end. And even when we have very specific details from the homeowner, we still need that time to plan and make sure we get it. Even another plan that we're working on, it's not going to start until January now because it needs to go to the zoning board. Why does it need to go to the zoning board? Because what the homeowner actually wants is cutting into their setbacks. These are things that we discover early on. If we just started building and going through it, we would have been in the setback and we could have had a cease order from the county or the city. And that would have stopped the whole project. And then we would have been shuffling and trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing. And now it's going to cost the homeowner money. It's going to cost us money, time. Things are open. It's a disaster. But that took us a lot of time to get to where we are now. We started that early, like a few months ago as well. And the homeowner knew exactly what they wanted. And we drew it up and she was like, no, this isn't it. So even with your communication and letting us know what you want, there's still room for interpretation. And we want to make sure we're getting it right. And so once we were able to go back and forth a little bit and really nail it down, we were able to get to the next page. And that next page was, all right, now we need engineer drawings architect drawings with elevation so we can submit it into permitting. And there's not going to be a lot of selections, but for this job specifically, but there will be a little bit. And we can do that now while we're waiting to go in front of the board to see if we can get into those setbacks that they want to do. The house itself the property line kind of cuts in, but what they want to do lines up with their edge of their house. So we're hoping that the city will vote in our favor and let us go into the setback a few feet for that property, so that way they can get that carport that they want it to be. And to just keep giving you more examples, because I find that having examples will make it a little bit clearer instead of me just telling you over and over again why this is important. But we are also working on another project where we're redoing their porch, and their porch spindles or bolsters you can't buy them. You can't buy them pre-made. You have to get them made. And so that alone is a 6 to 8 week lead time for them to be created. And what that looks like is, one, I got to go look around and make sure that nobody locally has these spindles, that they are readily available. Two, see if I can get the best price for this, because just because I can get them made from one person doesn't mean that's the best price or the best material. I'm going to have to shop around a little bit. So that's going to take a little time. And then on top of that, I need to make sure that whatever rail I get will also fit the same spindle. And I need this to all look alike because we're not touching the porch above. And so if this looks different from the porch above, then now we're worried about the BAR and HOAs and making sure that things, if they need to match, So that is going to be a project that won't start until the new year, because we need that lead time. Now that's not a crazy job. It's pretty straightforward. It's repairing a deck. It's pressure washing, it's sanding, it's painting, it's repairing. And still we need that pre-construction time just to make sure that we are able to order the materials we need, that we're able to get the pricing that we can get, the best pricing for you, and that we're getting everybody in place. So then that way when we're there, we know exactly what's happening. And this is going to be more of an exploratory project because there's some other areas that we just don't really know what's happening. They have extensive water damage on different areas of their home, and most of it's pretty, like you can see, it's cosmetic, so not a big deal. We probably are just going to be replacing some items, but there's also other areas that could be part of structural damage, and we won't know that until we're there and digging it up. That's kind of the nature of it. But we know this. These are things that we're preparing for. Okay, this could be really bad or it might not be. And if it's this, then this is the route we're going to go. So there's a lot of that type of planning too. It's mitigating surprises and what the could-be's are going to be. So for the other jobs, there are additions, right? They're new builds or add-ons that we shouldn't run into too many big surprises. But when we're running into something where we're just remodeling or we're renovating, then those are times where we need to really focus on what are the things that we might run into that can affect this job. So back to that bathroom, this is a condo. A condo comes with its own limitations. So we need to make sure that, our water, we're not hitting any water pipes, that we're able to turn off the water and not affect somebody else, that everything is going to be cohesive and done to the T. They actually wanted to have a curbless shower. Let me talk about curbless showers real quick because I get this a lot and I don't think it's known about how much structural work has to come to play when you're doing a curbless shower. In a curbless shower, you have to have your drain kind of slide down. And when you're going from a conventional shower or tub, your structure is not built for that slope for the drain to go. And so what that looks like is we actually have to go into the floor joist and bring it down. So when we're talking about a condo, you're not in good shape because you need to get access from below. And then if you're on a slab, that's the same thing. You got to cut into if anything, any kind of structural, you have to change it. And now we're talking about getting an engineer in because we want to make sure we're doing this structurally sound so the rest of your house is safe. And I know that doesn't seem like a big deal because the curb is just a couple inches big and you're just sloping your tub a little bit, but it's not. It's actually very involved structurally and it's a bigger deal than it sounds. And it's so simple, right? Because at the end, you're like, I spent this much money on something that just kind of drains the way I want it. But those are things when you're planning on a renovation to consider because that is a big cost up front for something that you don't really even realize how much, because it's so simple. So if you find that your contractor is being very quiet early on in the stages of pre-planning, it's normally for good reason. It's because they're gathering all the information they need to make sure that your construction project will go off without a hitch. And if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to them and open that communication. But they might not be relaying a ton of info right away, and that doesn't mean they're being slimy or shady. It just means that they're working hard. But it's not a bad idea to check in and ask your builder to just give you updates every now and then and let you know what's going on, just to keep a little finger on the pulse of what's happening. Now, if you're going back and forth the design phase, you'll probably hear from them often. But if you don't hear from your contractor right away in those early stages, it is most likely because they have their heads down and they're working hard behind the scenes to make sure that this project is going to be very successful for you and for them. If you found this episode to be helpful and you want to share it to somebody who might be going through a home renovation soon, make sure to hit share and send it on over and subscribe if you found this helpful. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful week, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for hanging out today. If you liked what you heard, please make sure you hit subscribe, and I hope to see you again next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.